Wherever you're watching this and whatever time, welcome to another episode of Millionaires Are Made, the show where we believe you can learn and become a millionaire in all 6 aspects of health. This show is built on the fundamental belief that every person you meet knows something that you don't. There's something to be learned from everyone. Let that sink in for a second. Okay, that's a second. So one thing we like to do here on Millionaires Are Made is we like to keep it super real. I don't even meet our guests until about 15 minutes before the show so that we don't have any bias or thought or talk. It's going to be raw. I do know their tips. I just told them to me. They're going to be awesome. You're going to for a great show. I'm super excited. We have 3 amazing guests. Amber is returning again. She's been on our show before, and we have 2 new guests, Luke and Emma. It's going to be super fun. We do have a sponsor today. Our sponsor is eLiances. They're a great, not a networking company, but if you are interested in connecting with other entrepreneurs, learning, teaching, really connecting with all sorts of great people, check out eLiances.com. They're a super awesome group. My buddy David's awesome. If you have any questions on that, of course, shoot a comment, shoot a tip, message us, however, and we'll get you all information. If you want to be a sponsor on one of these episodes, feel free to reach out as well. Same way, comment, email, phone number, all our information is virtually everywhere. So if you have any questions, let us know. Again, we have 3 awesome guests. If you want to be a guest, contact us. We always need more guests. We're looking for tons of guests. We love hearing from all over the world. Any kind of background, anyone and everyone has something that they can teach. Even you can teach something and tell us a little bit about your life journey and what you've learned. We also are curious what you guys want to know. Today's topic is logic. We're doing intellectual health logic. If you have anything that you're interested in that you would like to learn about, please let us know so we can make it a topic, find some guests, and do some teaching. So without further ado, how do I improve my intellectual health with logic? Well, first, I do a lot of reading. I'm a big reader. I read at least 10 pages every day of nonfiction. And today, I'm actually in the middle of this awesome book that's going to be my tip for the day. This book is called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And the book, where I'm at right now, is talking about something called thinking time. So sometimes everyone says, think about it, ponder on it, sleep on it, something like that. Keith actually goes in and scientifically details how to do it, how to think properly, how to execute, what you should be thinking about, questions you should think about, any major decision. And he claims he spends about like almost an hour a day thinking, and that it's not enough. So if you are interested in some logic and some intellectual health, Philip, I agree with you. I would go check it. We got the link there for you so you can go buy it. The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. If you don't know who he is, frickin' Google that guy. Super smart guy. And that book is, I can't put it down. I read about an hour on the plane, and I'm about to read more as soon as we're done here. So without further ado, reading, logic, thinking time. Think. We're going to bring out our first guest here. Her name is Emma. Emma, how you doing today?
Hello, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
And where are you calling from today?
I am based in the south of England in the UK in a little county called Hampshire.
Very awesome. Emma, who are you?
So I'm a conflict resolution specialist. So I am all about trying to help people have peaceful relationships, particularly in the workplace. So I'm an accredited workplace mediator, a DISC practitioner, a peaceful leadership coach, and I also do a lot of training around interpersonal skills. So that's me.
That's me. Very cool. All right. I've got a really important question for you, Emma. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health using logic, what tiny tip would you give me?
Stay curious about people. It is absolutely vital if you want to have peaceful relationships to stay curious about people.
Do you have any tips on how to stay curious? Is it a natural thing, or is it something you can learn?
I think it's something that some people are naturally curious about other people, but I think it's really important, even if you are kind of prone to be curious, to still be proactive about it and choose to be curious about someone else when you're having a conversation. So one thing that I would always say that just is a helpful prompt is to ask another question. It's so easy for us to ask one question and then feel like we've had the complete answer and we know exactly what, how the conversation's going, what they're thinking, and we've summed it up already in our heads. But instead of jumping the gun, by thinking instead, actually, I'm going to ask another question and delve deeper into that topic that we're talking about, then it's just one other way to just remain curious and keep asking questions, remembering that we don't know all the facts.
Sometimes we don't even know what we don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Emma, where in the world did you learn this tip?
Well, probably unsurprisingly, through my job. I've been a workplace mediator for about 8 years now. And the longer that I do this job for, the more I see the people who remain stuck in this really uncomfortable conflict, and those who also tend to be the most affected by the situation that's going on, are often those who have quite a fixed perspective about what caused the situation, about the other person involved, and it's hard to get them to shift from that perspective. Whereas those people who are curious and want to understand where that other person is coming from, even if they feel really hurt by what they did, even if it feels like I would never do something like that, but if there's still an element of curiosity in that person, then they are much more likely to get through the situation and come out of it in a better state of mind. And also just to be able to put that in the past. Whereas those people who have quite a fixed perspective on what's happened, I meet a lot of mind readers, I'm telling you, in my job, a lot of people who really think that they know what the other person is thinking, why they did things a certain way, without realizing that actually, if you are coming from a perspective of logic, we all have very different frames of reference in terms of how we see the world and see other people. And so if we aren't aware of the fact that we do have very different frames of reference and that those will influence our thinking and therefore our feelings, that sometimes that feeling of intuition about another person may be intuition, perhaps, but it may also be because you've had a situation where someone has really broken your trust and therefore you're expecting other people to behave a similar way and to not be trustworthy. So it's kind of being aware of, yes, we sometimes have these feelings and we're not quite sure where to pin them on. Sometimes there is a logical way to kind of backtrack. Where am I getting this thinking from? And is it actually got anything to do with the person, or is it something else that's going on here?
That's awesome insight there. I love it. So did you have a degree for your job?
So you don't necessarily need a degree to be a mediator. I do have a law degree. So I kind of went at it from that angle. And then in the UK, the court that deals with employment law situations is called the Employment Tribunal. So I worked there for a few years after my law degree. And so it's kind of those situations where I'm really aware of what happens when people get into a conflict and they don't nip it in the bud straight away before it ends up in the legal system.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. I love it. I'm all out of questions. It's time for us to move on. Our next guest here is Luke. Luke, who are you?
I'm awesome. And yourself?
Oh, I'm great, but who are you?
Oh, who am I? Oh, that's a long question. I am
got a minute and a half.
Sake of argument, transformational mindset coach and speaker, which just is a fancy way of saying I help people get out of their own way, overcome their limiting beliefs, the BS stories we tell ourselves, those limitations that create those fears, those hesitancies, the low self-belief, low self-confidence, thinking we can't do anything. So I help people overcome those and become the best versions of themselves to stop holding themselves back. That's the short answer.
Very cool. Do you work with yourself, or do you have other coaches that work with you?
No, I work as a primary one-on-one with my clients, as well as I have group coaching programs and courses, self-directed, to help facilitate transformation in my clients. And I also do it with team training and speaking on stage to organizations, associations, and companies.
All right, Luke. Sound pretty cool, but I've got a question for you.
Sure.
If I wanted to improve my intellectual health using logic, what simple piece of advice would you give me?
The first and most critical step is self-awareness, becoming the observer of ourselves, that objective observer. And we call this mindfulness. It's always the first step.
Mindfulness. Okay. All right. So a little bit, I guess, tell us about your journey, but also while you're doing that, answer how we can easily become more mindful.
Sure. Well, I mean, since this is facilitating our intellectual health and logic, in order to get to logic, we're inherently emotional creatures. And that gets us into trouble most oftentimes because we subconsciously or we automatically emotionally react to things instead of intelligently and rationally responding. So when we default down those old behaviors, we don't move forward. We don't use logic. So in order to use logic, we need to pause. We need to create that space between stimuli and response. And this comes from Viktor Frankl's book on man's search for meaning. And that's how we get towards the fundamentals of critical thinking, is applying logic and reason by taking a step back. So the trick is, or the tip is whenever something happens, you're going to have a thought and a feeling that's going to create this, an old decision, a belief about something, and you're going to want to act in a certain way, is to take that pause and ask yourself, is what I'm about to do next going to serve me? Is it going to move me forward, or is it going to take me back in alignment with my goals? So it's very critical to know and keep present that mindfulness, that self-awareness in your conscious brain of what am I trying to achieve? Who am I trying to become? Am I, happy and positive and abundant? And all of those things are predicated on your ability to make a decision that's an intelligent response to the environment instead of an emotional reaction where we give our power and control away and we allow others to influence our actions and outcomes. So if we want to change, we have to change ourselves by creating that space. And that's where mindfulness and self-awareness play that critical role to allow you to do that by asking yourself one simple question: is this going to serve me?
Is this going to serve me? Awesome. That's great. So yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. Sit back before you respond to some sort of reaction. Think, does this serve my goals? Does this align with my goals and my values?
Right. It's a stop, challenge, choose. It's like a really stop. Be aware of what the situation is, and then challenge yourself. Should I react this way or respond that way? What's in my best interest? And then choose. You're an adult. Choose that. That path that's going to serve you. Or if you choose not to, let's say you're dieting and you choose to go for the cheeseburger or the cake or whatever, just accept the responsibility and move on and make a better decision next time. But stop, challenge, and choose. It's creating that space, that awareness, and asking yourself that question: is this going to serve me?
Such a simple piece of advice. I think everyone should go. That's like the whole point of the show. Stop, challenge, choose. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. All right. We got to start putting that more in our lives here.
Yep.
Awesome, Luke. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next guest here. We'll bring you out a little bit later. Hey, Amber. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good. Question from the audience. Who are you?
Yeah, I'm Amber Trusick. I'm a day trader, entrepreneur. I am a recently published author. I am the owner of Stratford Consulting, a financial consulting firm that helps startups and turnaround companies. I'm the owner of Whoopsie Hair Ties. There ain't no thing like a whoopsie thing. And then also I'm the owner of Fitter, Smarter, Richer, which is a self-development company that teaches people how to create discipline in their life.
Discipline. Good. All right. Yeah. Well, you probably need some logic for that. Well, let me ask you some important question. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health using logic, what piece of advice would you give me?
So this is the most logical thing that you can do. You have to create a plan. All right. So whether you're learning how to crochet, whether you're learning a new language or you want to scale your business, you got to define what you want to learn. Okay. Then you got to hyper focus in on that. We can go so many different directions. You need to hyper focus on what you want to learn. You need to schedule time for it, and then you need to be able to track it and measure it.
Okay, so I guess you probably have quite a lot of background, but let me ask you, what on your journey led you to the simple tip? Make a plan, improve logic. How'd you learn it?
Yeah, so when I was starting out in my career in finance, I really wasn't getting promoted as fast as I wanted to. And that's when I said, okay, let's break this down logically on how I can make more money. And this is where this came about, is literally growth and development, and how can I plan and accelerate that faster? And that was me scheduling it, tracking it. And then ultimately I saw my career go into a hockey stick because of this system.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Simple. All right. What's the very, very first step to making a plan?
All right. So you need to define what you want to learn. So for example, if you want to learn a new language, one, define the language, right? Let's boil it down. Let's just say you want to learn French, and then devote how much time you want to learn French every day. That's the one piece that everybody forgets to do, is schedule. And you may say, hey, I really don't have a lot of time. I have kids, I have work, I have this. Well, think about what you're doing productivity wise during the day. Can you squeeze out some radio time on your way to work to learn French? Or how much time are you really sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix? So it's the scheduling piece that's the hardest. And then the tracking piece is what makes you accountable and is able to show you physically if you're making any progress towards it.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, even just download an app on your phone, 2 minutes a day less of Facebook doom scrolling. You could be learning some French there.
There you
awesome, Amber. I love it. Well, man, we're moving through this. I think we might have a long talk, so I'm going to bring everyone else out if that's all right.
Let's do it.
We'll bring Emma out and Luke out. All right, guys, we got some hefty tips going on here. Let's go ahead and start with Emma. Do you want to real quickly refresh us what your tip was?
Stay curious about people. It's essential for effective conflict resolution and having peaceful relationships.
Luke and Amber, what are your thoughts on that?
Luke, do you have thoughts?
On peaceful relationships? No, all chaos all the time. No, I think Emma and I were talking earlier, is that it's a critical piece to be aware and work with other people in a synergistic environment, because we're coming out of an era where we've been kind of secluded and sequestered post-pandemic. We've lost a lot of our emotional skills, our EQ skills, and our ability to play nice with one another, because we've had this autonomy of being at home behind a Zoom screen. And we've had this sort of expectation that now we got to play well with others in the environment. And so we need some sort of mediation to kind of regroup and refresh ourselves on the skills of working with people, not just thinking about ourselves, which we had 2 years of.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think we're also in a day and age of information overload. So we feel like we have access to so much information, therefore we must be able to come to a conclusion quite quickly, when, people are a bit more complicated than that.
Well, 100%. I mean, we're all wired differently. We have a different set of beliefs. And now we're bringing our identity, emotions, and individuality to a logic problem. This is about intellectual health and logic. Well, the problem is we're humans. We're emotional and logical creatures. We have head and heart. And if they're not in alignment on a particular subject matter, when we start debating that, then a lot of times we have an identity issue where we think we're being personally attacked, as opposed to the subject matter, which is being discussed and worked through. And then people can be very defensive and then go on the offense. We see this in the media arena all the time, is people don't defend on logic, fact, reason, or law. They defend on personal belief and feeling.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well said there, Luke. Hey, Luke, while you're at it, do you want to quickly refresh what your tip was?
Sure. It's working on the skill of becoming self-aware, being mindful, and being the observer of whether we're emotionally reacting or intelligently responding. And the tip is stop, challenge, and choose. Just when you're about to do something, take that pause, just like a little kid, count to 5, and recognize, is this going to serve me, my goals, in the direction I want, or is it going to take me back and take me to a place of an outcome that I don't want?
So I love how Luke and Emma's both tie in so well together, because the mindfulness piece and the curiosity piece, as individuals, we're very self-interested in ourselves. Well, if that's all you talk about, you're never going to learn. So think about it that way, as being mindful of even being in a conversation. How often are you talking about yourself rather than asking questions about another individual?
And I think Amber, with her entire premise of, having a plan around how we're going to objectively do these things is critical, because it's about learning and about growth. If I have 10 Legos, I only can make so many things. I only can be so creative. So if you are open and curious and now have 100 Legos and you do your reading, like we just learned, you're reading your 10 minutes a day, you're recognizing podcasts, you're being a student of life. When we get more information in, then our brain has more things to process and has more outcomes and more creative opportunity to come up with a solution outside of what we think we know. And that's where growth comes. And we need that perspective and interaction from others in order to do that. And we can find a common ground by investing in our own intellectual health, by increasing our knowledge and awareness, and then blending that in with discussion with others.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that. I often find that in a mediation, one of the most powerful things that I can do is sometimes sit in silence and let it get really awkward for a little while, because people tend to use that time they fill it and open up more than they were going to, or they take that time to be a bit more introspective and consider other alternatives to what they'd come in with quite a fixed mindset. I think having a moment in conversation with people and separately, individually, for mindfulness can be really good in both aspects.
100%.
All right, let's hear that last tip, and let's go over it as well.
All right. So I think Luke too hit on this, but creating a plan. So being able to define it, what you want to learn, hyper focusing on it, which is one of the big things that you need to do. We can go so many different directions, but hyper focusing in on one thing. It's like reading multiple books. If you read multiple books, you're not going to get one book done faster than the others. And then also being able to schedule it and being able to track it. So I would love to know how, like, this, from your perspectives, Emma and Luke, ties into creating curiosity and mindfulness within the realm of developing a plan.
100%. It's all stages. And if you look at it, I start out with self-awareness. And when you go from self-awareness and then you go into belief and you create your new identity and who you want to become for what you want to achieve, that is the plan. And then you have intentional execution. What's the intentionality of the execution? It's great to dream and be a visionary and think of, this is the things I want to create. These are the things I want to do. But you have to have a grounded structural plan of what are those steps? What does it look like? And from my side of the fence, and especially with Emma's on her side of the fence of collaboration, sometimes it takes a village. You can't do things alone. You need to backstop your breadth of skill and knowledge you may not have and leverage other people. But at the end of the day, when you want to achieve something, you can't, you have to wear both hats of dreamer and then someone and an action taker. And you can't take action unless you have a plan, and you have to believe in yourself to execute that plan with intentionality and discipline and confidence every day, and be that hyper-focused person so you don't get distracted with the what ifs and start doubting yourself. And that's where we get in trouble. It's never the plan. So the coolest thing in the world is someone else has already done something that we want to do in some form or fashion. And they either have a coaching program, a book, a mentorship. They've left breadcrumbs. They've left a trail, and they've left a blueprint. It's just what gets in the way of us just following the blueprint and achieving that success. It's the head trash. It's the stories we tell ourselves. It's the limitations. It's the unwillingness to let go of what we think we know, the ego, and bond with other people and allow to be instructed and educated and empowered with other people's ideas that we can follow. It doesn't make us any less. Actually, it makes us smarter, because if we wanted to achieve something we haven't already, we don't currently have the capacity. We must change and become the person that can. What skills, character traits, and habits does that person have that we need to adopt in order to achieve our goals?
Yeah. I love what you were saying, Amber. And I think for me, I see so often people delaying dealing with tricky situations. And often it's because they haven't decided and they haven't made a plan and they haven't got clear on what they want to get out of it. And lots of difficult conversations end up going awry because they haven't sat down beforehand and gone, okay, what do I actually want to achieve from saying this? Not just I want to blurt it all out, but actually if you deal with emotions in a logical fashion, you do think about, what do I want to get out of this conversation? What do I want them to hear? When are we going to have this conversation in a way that makes sense so that it's not rushed or other people are interrupting? And how am I going to make sure that I stick with what we decide we're going to do to improve things? And I think, you know, for me, when I come to the end of a mediation, we put together an agreement which doesn't go before a court, but it's kind of a something tangible they can take away with them, which helps them keep on track, keep accountable. And I think it relates so much to what you were saying about having a plan, that when you kind of decide what you want to get out of it, you schedule it in, don't put it off, and you keep yourself accountable. It works for so many areas of life.
Awesome.
Damn, you guys are killing it. I love when I don't even have to talk. I can sit back and just get the knowledge soaking in. But we do have one more task.
Okay.
We got to come up with a daily challenge. It's got to take less than 5 minutes, cost less than $0 or exactly $0 maybe, and be available to anyone in the world to do to increase their intellectual logic. What ideas do you guys have?
I mean, I think we could come up with something that merges all of those tips together in a way.
Well, I think that
Tell me it.
If you don't mind, there are 3 things that I ask my clients and ask everyone, that if you ask these 3 questions of yourself, you'll have to incorporate all the things we've been talking about today, which is, what do you really want?
Yes.
Go deep on it. What do you really want? Secondly, why do you really want it? What's that strong emotional tie? And then the last thing is, how are you going to feel when you achieve it? When you ask yourself those 3 things, you have to systematically understand where you are and what you want to do, why you want to do it emotionally, which will tie the logic piece of when the hard work of how to get it, and how are you going to feel after you achieve it, which gives you the carrot in the future to do the hard decisions, which are going to require planning and infrastructure. And to get a plan, you need to collaborate and find out who did it before you, who did it well, what do I need to learn and grow into to do that. And it starts with your decision, that mindset, and then going out and acquiring the skills or the character traits, the beliefs or the behaviors to then create that structural plan to execute it with the will to succeed.
Luke, I think that's great insight. I really love that. I really do love Emma's simplicity of be curious, because you can go out anywhere and be curious and ask how someone is doing rather than talking about yourself. So, or picking up a book, or picking up, instead of turning off on the TV, put on a podcast to learn something new. So I love
Put on Millionaires Are Made.
Put on Millionaires Are Made. That's it.
Yeah, it's the only thing you should listen to. Exactly, the one piece of information. But it's very simple. No one sits there. We kind of do our day to day. We just get in the rut of what we're normally doing, mouse on a wheel kind of stuff. But then we have these peaks of dreaming, of doing something different or being better. But until we concrete and ask ourselves those questions, what do we really want? Why do we really want it? And then we have to make a decision. And someone said in chat, like, when are you going to start? Is you got to have a hard deadline. If you're going to make a decision, it's not, I'll start the diet next Monday, or I'll start when I have the funding or when I have the expertise. One of the critical concepts that most people are subject to, which keeps them stuck, is that they think they have to have the thing in order to do what they want to become the person they are, when you have to become the person you are and then do the hard things to have what you want. It's be, do, have. And with the internet and with information and with amazing podcasts like Millionaires Are Made, is that there's no lack of information. What we need with Amber is that instruction, because information is useless. A library hasn't affected the world in any capacity. It's the execution of knowledge. So we have to have the ideas and the execution at the same time. And that starts with making a decision to change, which comes in with changing the mindset and then also collaborating to finding the right path that's going to work for you.
Let's go back to Amber before I interrupted her rudely.
No, you're good. I think I'm trying to boil it down so it's simplistic for everybody, right? And I really like, Luke, what you said was just defining your start date. What are you going to do? What are you going to do today that's different from tomorrow? And how are you going to move forward? So I really loved Emma's piece of curiosity, because that's something that's so easy to do, is being curious, putting down the remote, putting on Millionaires Are Made podcast, picking up a book, reading 10 pages, but you have to start. So maybe it's, what are you going to start today? And what are you going to do differently today than you did tomorrow? And maybe that's doing something different every day until you find that one thing that sparks this fire in you that you're like, yeah, I need to build a plan and I need to focus on that, because that's what I want to do. Because I think a lot of people have an idea of hey, this may be what I want to do. They get into it and they lose traction on it. So maybe it's try something new every day until you find that one thing that you're like, this is it. And I want to build a plan around it. And this is what I want to do to get more knowledgeable. Just an idea.
All right.
What do you
less than
think?
5 minutes, $0 anywhere in the world. Daily challenge. You think maybe we spend 5 minutes either reading or podcasting, somehow like consuming quality information?
Yeah, I think so. I think discover something new each day. Try and discover something
Discover
new.
something new.
I like that.
And that could be
Curiosity, I like
information
that.
or something about people you know in your household, something new each day.
So every day, spend 5 minutes curiously examining, have a plan, do it at the same time every day, maybe.
Yeah.
I would go further and say, be curious about what scares you. A lot of us hold back. Like, is it making video online? Is it creating that plan? Is it reaching out to others? Is it be better at sales, a better communicator? Whatever the thing that we're most fearful of because we're not as skillful of, to me, that's the challenge. When I ever have a gut reaction to something that's negative, to me, I look at it as a sign that's something you have to investigate to overcome, because we're not going to go around the obstacle. We're going to go through it and we'll become better and we'll develop that grit and resilience. And knowledge is that key. A lot of times is go after what you don't know. And then once you start to know it and crack the door and the light on it, it's not so overwhelming. And you can create a plan to either outsource that skill or acquire it yourself, but at least you'll have that bit of knowledge that's not going to be an impediment to moving forward or allowing yourself to think you can't.
All right, so I think to keep it somewhat simple, I'm going to say spend 5 minutes every day learning a subject you are not an expert in.
Love it.
Sure.
That's cool. I like that.
Whether you just Google it and read a couple articles, or you go into a podcast about ghosts or spirits or mountain climbing, whatever it is, spend 5 minutes into something you're not an expert in right now that you would consider yourself not an expert in. Like shaving my face, that might be a good one.
Maybe.
That sound good to everyone for a simple tip, for a simple little challenge for everyone to go learn more?
Yeah, I like it.
Because it's exponential. If every day you spent 5 minutes learning something, they say an expert, if you spent 17, what was it, a number of hours? Like if you spent 17 minutes a day on any one subject focus, you're going to be smarter or ahead of the game by 90% of the population. Because it's exponential learning curve. 1% a day, 5 minutes. That's all it takes. It's going to add up.
I love it, guys. All right, well, guess what? That was all we had to do today, and this show has culminated. You guys did awesome. Thank you all. I'm going to put you backstage, and I'll talk to you after the show's over.
Thank you.
Whew, man, I hope you all learned something off that one. We had 3 awesome guests, learned all about logic and intellectual health and how to grow it. Have a sweet daily challenge. Spend 5 minutes every day learning about a subject you're not an expert in. So if you're really bad at pickleball, maybe you're going to have to start learning some pickleball rules. If you're really bad at drawing, maybe you'll have to take a drawing class. I mean, if you take an hour-long class, that could cover you for the full week. I'll accept it. But either way, let's take 5 minutes. Let's go learn something new every day. And make sure you stay tuned for another episode. And about 20 minutes, we'll have another episode of Millionaires Are Made. And hope you guys enjoy.